Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Hope everyone is doing well. Um, we'll just wait for a few more seconds for everyone to come in today's exciting and informative webinar. Some general housekeeping items. This is a recorded webinar, and also any participants that if you have to step out, answer a phone, have dinner, by all means, we'll be able to email you the video file along with the presentation as well. Also, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, I will be more than happy to moderate them on your behalf. Please put them in the Q&A, and at the end of the webinar, Claude and Steve will be able to respond to your questions. Also, there's a great way to, it's new year, new me, who are you? So it's a good opportunity for you to introduce yourself in the chat, what business you have, what are some of your 2023 goals, what are some strategies that you want to implement for this year? And right there, you'll be able to have the aha moment in today's webinar. And then I see some familiar faces, so I just want to say hi to everyone that I haven't seen in a while. And I'm also going to pass it over to Steve to say some kind words, and I'll carry it back to my side.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year as well. On behalf of Luby and the team at Branches, so wonderful to have you all here this evening. We have over 100 businesses registered for today's workshop. So I think we're off to an outstanding start to the year. And, like in the vein of the training that we had in 2022, this training today is the first in a series of 3 for this month. It centers around our conceptual strategy of business intelligence. And today's topic is going to be growth strategies for your business. And, it's going to feed you, particularly as we move into a time of, I would say, some economic turmoil. The indicators are there. There's signs of a recession that's upon us. Focusing on your strategy for growth is going to be exceptionally important. And I think having this training today at the start of the year is very timely, not just because it's a topic that's going to help you generally in your business, but more specifically because of what we're seeing happening with the economy. So everyone, I just wanted to say welcome. We're changing up the process a little bit today. Jesus is going to introduce Branches and the work that we do as part of his discussion on the Navigator. And he's going to introduce our speaker today. And before I hand over to Jesus, I just wanted to say a heartfelt thank you to Jesus for helping set up today's training for us. As you guys know, without Jesus, I think all things will fall apart, right? He's the glue that holds it all together, and we really, really appreciate him. And I do also want to share a heartfelt thank you to Dr. Kirshner, who is a great friend to Branches and a great friend to us, the team at Branches. And I do want you all to know that, Claude is with us this evening at very short notice. And, I became a little under the weather, and I asked him, I say, hey, Claude, could you help me with today's presentation? And this was just literally the day before yesterday. And he said, Steve, I so enjoy working with the businesses in the program in Miami-Dade. I do want to make a contribution. And here he is today, ladies and gentlemen. So a heartfelt thank you to Claude. And you will see that some of you would have experienced his training already. He's outstanding. And today is going to be another part of that enjoyment for you. So Jesus, I'm going to hand over to you now. And again, everyone, thank you and have a wonderful training today.
Thank you, Steve. So I'll go based on the brief description of what is Branches and the Miami-Dade Business Navigator program. So the Miami-Dade Business Navigator program is funded through a cooperative agreement through the Small Business Administration. And a brief description of what is branches. It assists the small micro businesses and services that support participants in becoming economically self-sufficient through entrepreneur activities. These include business assessments, readiness workshops, comprehensive business management trainings, personal one-on-one financial coaching, along with the technical assistance and ongoing business mentoring. So I will put in the chat the actual link so you could go ahead and register to meet with Luby, with Steve, with the fine folks and my colleagues from branches to assist your business needs. But at the same time, what's neat about it is that you're able to meet with other organizations as well that's under this umbrella of the Miami-Dade Business Navigator program. So the program is comprised as a hub. In this case, it is the Florida SBDC at FIU, followed by a network of spoke organizations that deploy community advocates to work with you, the small business owners, along the recovery and the resiliency of the pandemic. The overall goal is easy, is to improve the long-term economic recovery among the small businesses with a sole focus on businesses owned by veterans, women, as well as socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. Now, you have heard of branches and the Florida SBDC at FIU. We also have Ascendis that provides some access to capital assistance training, the South-Dade EDC, along with the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, Prospera, and SARP FIU Procurement. All of these 7 organizations are able to assist you at no cost. So by all means, it's a great opportunity for you to get to meet all of our navigators along our trainings, our consulting. Like I said, it's a good opportunity for you to network, and anything that we do to assist you with your businesses needs, by all means, just shoot me an email. I'll be more than happy to connect you to the appropriate organizations. So once again, this is a $2.5 million grant that is created for businesses are located here in Miami-Dade County. But if your business is located in Palm Beach, Broward, Monroe County, we'll be able to assist you. Now, if your business is outside that area, by all means, don't hesitate, shoot me an email, and I'll be able to connect you with my colleagues and resources based on your neighborhood small business organization. Right here is also our connect, connect with us, visit our website, give us a call, shoot us an email, follow us on social media. Also our YouTube channel. That is one area that I strongly encourage you to like and subscribe, as we'll be definitely uploading our previous webinars and also any trainings, topics that might be of interest based on the area need that you're seeking. In the chat, I'm also going to be putting some upcoming events. So I strongly encourage you to participate because it's always carrying the baton for enhancing those tools for that toolbox for you. So enough about me, enough about how we can assist you. I want to introduce you to Claude Kirshner, as he will be delivering today's webinar. So in the chat, I'll be communicating with each and every one of you. Any questions, by all means, I'm more than happy to answer them on your side. Claude, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you see the screen okay?
Yes.
All right, great. Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is an incredible opportunity. I'm going to try to keep it as engaging and as relevant and hopefully active in your face as possible, considering the format on Zoom. It's a little bit different for me, but we'll figure it out. So thank you for the introduction. To be a part of this program is a true honor, and thank you for having me tonight. My name is Claude, and I think the first thing I want to say is that I fundamentally believe in the empowering and transformational power of entrepreneurship. And tonight we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, and hopefully at the end of this, it'll be one of your favorite subjects as well. And that is, it's really growth strategies for small business, but I'm going to reframe it and call it entrepreneurial strategy. And obviously an entrepreneurial strategy is frameworked around growth. So I'm going to start off with a quote. This is by a gentleman named Danny Miller. And Danny Miller really coined and he pioneered this phrase called an entrepreneurial orientation. And he says, an entrepreneurial firm is one that engages in product market innovation, undertakes somewhat risky ventures, and is first to come up with proactive innovations beating competitors to the punch, beating competitors to the punch. A non-entrepreneurial firm, and I love how he contrasts this, is one that innovates very little, is highly risk averse, and imitates the moves of competitors instead of leading the way. So at this point in your journey, at least this context, when I presented to you all last time, we talked about business planning, not as exciting as dynamic, but it's a different phase in the business or the entrepreneur life cycle that we're going to focus on today. So you've gone through the opportunity recognition, you've developed some level of business model or concept. Hopefully you found a product market fit for your service. And at this phase, or at least we're going to frame this conversation tonight, and this is not a lecture, I'm really setting the table for a discussion that's going to happen afterwards. So I'll be maybe 20, 25 minutes, probably more like 30 minutes talking to you about this topic. And then we're going to have question and answers for some more relevancy. This part is implement, manage, and growth phase of your company. And I love the understanding that when we're in this venture launch phase, we have this energy and this excitement, and we're looking for the customer. We have this customer discovery process. We're pivoting and we're agile, and we have this customer validation. Then we move to this execution phase, which is customer creation and company building. At times that spark is lost. And one of the reasons why it's lost is because inherently, as we build and manage these organizations that we run, we're going to systematize, we're going to build systems and structures so that we're capable of managing this growth into the future. And sometimes that just as nature calls is dimming or putting the light out to that entrepreneurial flame. So tonight I'm going to try to ignite that to the best I can. And one of the things I'm going to push forward and assert is that keeping your entrepreneurial mindset and that vigor and that assertiveness you had when you first started your business or recognized that opportunity is what we're going to carry with us. That's going to make us competitive as we design the strategy that we're going to use to grow our company. So Steve set it up perfectly. The environment, a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we focus on the wrong things. And when I say the wrong things, and I'm guilty of this myself, is we're focusing on what's happening internally within our own organizations. If you're running a company right now, you know what I'm talking about. You wake up in the morning, there's an issue at hand, you must solve it. There's a customer that has a need, you must figure it out. There's finances that need addition, you have to bill somebody or make a sales call. We're focusing on what's happening in the here and now within our organizations. And tonight, I want to reframe that you're focusing on the wrong things, and we must focus on the external environment when we think about strategy. I don't think it would surprise us if we turned on the news tomorrow morning and we saw that IBM is filing for bankruptcy. The turbulence in the external environment is clear. The economic turbulence, the competitive turbulence, the labor environment turbulence. Labor has changed significantly since the onset of COVID. Resource environment, what kind of resources can we use to build our business? The customer environment, the legal and regulatory environment. We call this, or I call this, environmental turbulence. The external environment is unpredictable. It's changing all the time. As we as strategic entrepreneurs must understand what's going on in the environment in order to stay competitive. There was a gentleman that I talked to the other night. He was my daughter's home. You might hear her coming for me. I'm standing up in my office at this time. But anyways, he was focused on a marketing consulting firm, and he was delivering a service to clients, and he was designing and implementing marketing consultation. He would brand the company, he would put the company out there. He was on the phone with me 2 days ago and completely pivoted because he discovered this thing called OpenAI. And he found out that OpenAI could literally create content, social media content, and can create writing articles, written content with a few keywords that he can utilize on as his competitive advantage when he's competing against other marketing firms. And he had a whole different strategy because he understood what was happening in the technology framework. So that turbulence and complexity is imperative to understand. So here's my question. When you look at the next 10 years, what do you expect? How can we delight and amaze our customers throughout this environmental turbulence? More change or less change within your organization? What's your response? So if external things are changing, the internal strategy that we utilize to delight and amaze our customers has to change as well too. So what's the right fit? What's the right structure? What's the right strategy? And what's the right process in order to execute on our competition within this environment. So I could spend a lot of time on understanding strategy, and from a corporate perspective, we talk about diversification, we talk about the global environment, and we talk about our financial strategy and our marketing strategy. But I'm going to briefly define it, and then we're going to talk about tangible things that we can do to execute on our strategy within our own organization. So strategy, which is important to understand, a strategy is a plan of action that describes resource allocation, our money, our people, our time, our facilities, our equipment. Those are our resources. How are we allocating those resources, and what activities are we performing for dealing with the environment, achieving a competitive advantage, and attaining goals? So my strategy shifted when I was running the pool business and the landscaping business called Reef Tropical, when I spoke to a man named Shep Murray. It's an interesting name, Shep, but he had 3 houses in Ocean Reef Club, beautiful homes. So he was a good customer of ours, and he owns a company called Vineyard Vines. So he's very good at what he does. And he told me one day when I was providing poor service to one of his homes, he had some feedback for me. And he said, Claude, you're not in the service business. You're in the hospitality industry. And at that moment, and that was about 6 years ago, I reframed our strategy within our organization to say, wait a minute, you're right. So we adopted a customer retention and a customer loyalty strategy, which took our resources and our time and our effort away from marketing and picking up new customers. And we focused them on keeping the customers that we have and delighting the customers that we have. So we train our employees, we would pay our employees more money. We would make sure they deliver quality service. If a customer called and had a complaint, I would tell the customer service representative that they have free reign to credit that customer 1 month of pool service if they will keep us as a service provider. And one of the things that we'll talk about, but I'll mention it now, is we understood the lifetime value of a customer. So through analytics, through listening, and through understanding the pivot in our business, we changed our strategy, and it really took off. So what businesses should I be in? How can I create value? That's a big thing we're going to talk about tonight, creating value in these businesses. How will this value be superior to that created by our companies, by other companies, or standalone businesses? What kinds of systems, structures, processes do I need to achieve the target value? So I could tell you, hey, listen, you should employ a customer retention strategy and a customer loyalty strategy, but that wouldn't make sense because we have to understand what resources you have as an organization. You also have to understand the core competencies your organization presents. Those are the variables that we must understand first before we employ a strategy. So hopefully you understand that. So I can't just tell you what the right strategy is for the business. It depends on the industry. It depends on the business. It depends on the life cycle. It depends on the size, but we'll talk about some of this tonight. So I love the way this is defined. A little challenging for me to read with something blocking it, but it says a well-formulated strategy helps to marshal and allocate an organization's resources into a unique and viable posture. I love that term, posture, based upon the relative internal competencies and shortcomings, anticipated change in the environment, and contingent moves by its intelligent opponents. So think about strategy. Know about strategy. We're entrepreneurs, and I want you to understand that this is such a beautiful space to live in. It is such an impactful environment that we're in, and we have the ability, we have the blessing, we get to change the way our business focuses based on what we see in the external environment, based on what we understand our resources are, and based on what we understand our future and our core competencies are going to be. That is an exciting proposition, ladies and gentlemen. So let's continue. There's a band, and maybe some of you recognize this band. I am not familiar, but I know that my aunt wears the tie-dye t-shirt. She goes and hears some of these cover band concerts, and she partakes in a band called the Grateful Dead's. I'm sure some of you have heard of this band. And there was a famous human being who ran the Grateful Dead named Jerry Garcia. And some of the stuff that Jerry Garcia did and what the Grateful Dead did, they have this image of being sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and these oddities to their band, but they revolutionized the music industry and the way in which these concerts were delivered, and they created a tribe like no other company has ever created. And what Jerry Garcia said in an interview on TMZ or some channel, he said, we don't want to be the best of the best. We want to be the only ones who do what we do. And he did that, and he epitomized that. And I'm sitting here talking to you today, standing here talking today about that concept. And that's the mindset we want to have when we capitalize on these strategies. Southwest Airlines, another great example. If you fly on a typical airlines, a lot of times you're going to have to go into Atlanta or Dallas in order to get to wherever you need to go, the next destination. Southwest Airlines took their business model and completely re-engineered it and said, we're not going to have hubs. We're going to offer direct flights into whatever destination you want to go to. A really cool concept is they have no seat assignments. What does no seat assignments do when you walk onto a plane? People sit down a lot quicker. They have one kind of aircraft. They have no travel agents. They have no cost sharing with other airlines. They turn the planes over 2 times faster and more and dramatically lower cost than their competitors. And they made profit 35 straight years in a row. This is an example of an entrepreneurial strategy that offers what I'm telling you, and hopefully this is the core takeaway, is that the only sustainable competitive advantage that we can have in the current environment, the turbulence in this environment, is to adopt an entrepreneurial growth strategy, which means flexibility, adaptability, speed, aggressiveness, innovativeness. These are things that we have to possess on a regular basis. And what's so remarkable about this is if we have employees, if we have partners, if we have subcontractors, we can also take those tendencies and we could onboard them. We could bring them into this entrepreneurial creative environment, and they can be resources for us as well, which is pretty cool. There's an article that I recommend for all of you. It's called Speed as Strategy. My father said all the time when we were in business, it almost got annoying. And it's funny how I repeat some of the things that my father used to annoy me with now. He said that it is not the big who eats the slow. It is the fast. I'm sorry, it's not the big who eats the small. It is the fast who eats the slow. Meaning the ability to capitalize on opportunity quicker and be more agile is what's going to help us succeed in this new environmental shift. So I'm proposing that the at-risk company is the company that is not prepared with an entrepreneurial strategy. There is no sustainable competitive advantage without strategic entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is the advantage. You all and the mentality you have and that day-to-day pursuit, that hunger that you have for your business, carry that into every single thing you do. Innovativeness, risk-taking, and proactiveness, and bring that with you and onboard that as your strategy. One of the biggest frameworks that I discovered in my entrepreneurial journey is this thing called an opportunity horizon. And one of the reasons why I went back to grad school and I got a doctorate degree was only because I wanted to expand my opportunity horizon. I wanted to be exposed to other business owners, to other conversations that I wasn't originally exposed to. And that helped me so much discover some of the things that I could do better or some of the things that I could do wrong. So that opportunity horizon, growing and expanding that opportunity horizon, participating in some of the stuff that you're doing today is phenomenal. So here's a big takeaway that I'm going to ask all you to start doing right now. In this conversation, if you have a piece of paper, feel free to break it out. I want you to write down what you believe your operating model is. I want you to look at all of these different components of an operating model: bottlenecks, capacity, consistency. A bottleneck is something that keeps you from being able to flow processes, flow revenue, flow product through your business. Capacity constraints are a major constraint when we think about growth. The only way to understand, I believe, the only way to understand your operating model is to actually design, which we're going to talk about next, your operating process, or at least map it out. So I'm just going to read this part below because I'm sure a lot of you on this call that are running businesses right now, if you really take a deep breath, and in a parallel universe, this could very well be you. Operations is where you live. It's about doing the things consistently right. When you do that, more value is created, more customers are happy, less money is wasted, and more ideas come from innovating in the way you do things. So here's why I'm asking you to look internally, which is kind of odd, but analyze your internal nature. We worked with an entrepreneur in South Africa as a consultant, and his name was Tondo. Tondo was an amazing entrepreneur, and he did unbelievable things by creating this paper product. A lot of people go to South Africa and they spend their money as tourists. And what do they want when they come home? They want a tangible, organic, native to South Africa thing. And he would sell these packets of paper made by Tondo Enterprises right here in Khayelitsha in South Africa, and people would buy it. So he worked with 2 student entrepreneurs And what he did in his business was he would go down to the river and he would cut his materials. So he'd have raw materials. He would bring his materials back to his garage, his shanty house, essentially. And he would have 2 day laborers, we'd call them. These are people that are paid by cash, sort of under the table, that would help him take this, shrub weed and turn it into paper products. And what we were capable of doing while we were there, is we were able to open up retail channels for him. So we were able to form partnerships so he could have 3 different ways where he can sell his paper product in the store. And we went back home to the United States thinking we were $1 million. And, we did such a great job consulting this guy. And 1 year later, we go back to visit Tondo. And guess what happened? May say he's doing well, but what happened was he lost 2 of those retail relationships, and the third one was hanging on by a thread. And I asked the question, why do you think that is? And I ask you the same question too, is what Tondo was doing is he was performing his processes himself. He had everything in his head. He would do most of the work himself. And Tondo was a gregarious, outgoing guy. He loved to get in front of people. He loved to sell. And unfortunately, he got so busy taking care of making this material that he failed to continue to grow his business because he failed to take what's in his head, put it on a piece of paper, and his capacity was significantly constrained. So the purpose of me telling that example is what we did that year is we were able to go and define his operating process and look at his operating model very well. And we were able to find opportunities where quality control would come into play. We were able to bring it and put it on a piece of paper so that he can hire other people. But the magic of this is, and the strategic entrepreneurship concept is, when we standardized his process, we were capable of decreasing unit cost. We were capable, I'm going to go back to this operating model. We were capable of increasing his capacity, and we were capable of finding ways for him to innovate his process so that he can sell more products and do it better so that he can amaze and delight his customers more towards his core competencies. So long example, but I really want you all to understand that defining your processes could be a key to you figuring out what the right strategy is for you and understanding your core competencies. So I'll kind of skip over this. We were on this for a little while, but here are just some more ideas of ways in which you can innovate some of your processes. When we think about innovation, a lot of people think about new product, new brand, new technology, whatever that looks like. But as small business entrepreneurs, it's the innovation and the processes that we execute business that can make the most sense. I'll just do one quick example, which is a relevant example for me. When you think about that artificial intelligence that can write those articles, I have a consulting company, I create content. So I have a podcast and all this kind of stuff. And if I can onboard AI to put in 6 or 7 keywords within my daily consulting process, I can cut down the amount of time I spend writing articles, and I could spend more time with my clients. Wouldn't that behoove me to utilize that service as well? Obviously. So implementation is key. How are you actually creating value for the customers? When you outline your process, you're going to see this. Value comes from the offering and the customer's interaction with your organization. Interactions depend on processes and people. A picture of how you actually create value each day is important. We talked about core competencies already, is something that the organization or you, the entrepreneur, is particularly well at doing in comparison to others. Implementation is key. As entrepreneurs, we are in the business of dreaming. What do we all have in common? We all have a dream. We all have a dream. Creating ventures, influencing the world, doing something different. That is our commonality. But the other commonality we have, we are all bent towards action. We are bent towards action. And what I want you to do action-wise is understand, as an entrepreneur, you're a visionary, you're a creator, you're an innovator, you're a calculator risk taker, you name it. You're most likely this on steroids compared to other people. But what I'm asking you to do in this conversation is understand the manager, the managerial entrepreneur, the planner, the strategist, the organizer, the director, the staffer, the motivator, the budgeter, the evaluator, the coordinator, and the supervisor. These are competencies and skills that I wish somebody told me that I needed to focus on how to be a better manager when I was scaling and growing my company. Because one, I probably would have delegated it more formally because I didn't enjoy some of those managerial tasks. But 2, it would have helped me tremendously alleviate some of those growth pains in our strategy. So the inputs for entrepreneurship, look at this, the environment, the entrepreneur, your competencies, the resources you have, the concept, the business concept. If you think about it, if you have a strategy for a company that recycles, I use this example just as a funny one, the gum on the streets, they scrape the gum off of the street and they recycle it and sell it for a profit at a gum recycling plant. I don't know if that actually exists, but if you think about that concept and that business model, it is vehemently different than taking a rocket ship to Mars to live on Mars, night and day. So obviously their strategy is inherently different. So that's why each business is different. And that's why we have to understand our inputs before we create our strategy. I'm going to fly through this, but as an entrepreneur, when we think about building businesses, we have to think about our structure. If we're thinking entrepreneurially, how many levels should there be in our organization? Should we have a hierarchy? What should be the targeted apron of control? How much control should we have over our financials? Or should we share our financials with the people on our team so we can incentivize them and be able to feel like we're not alone in this process? How formal or informal should structural relationships be? Look at the structure differently. Dick's Sporting Goods. I'd ask you to raise your hand and tell me if you've been to Dick's recently. But Dick's Sporting Goods is one of my favorite businesses because it's ran by a man named Ed Stack. When we think about a structure, Ed Stack says that he's really a servant leader. He has great values. He puts himself at the bottom of a diamond-based structure. He's at the bottom of the structure. On the sides of the diamond are his executives. And you go a little bit further up towards what he calls the athlete. That's what he calls his customer. I love that. His customer, they don't call it a customer, call it an athlete. So he says to his team, so he's got himself, he's got his executives, he's got his managers, and then at the very top, he's got the athlete. And he says, the closer you are to the athlete, the more you should talk, meaning the people in the field that are interacting with the customer, they need to be the ones talking the most in the organization. They need to be talking to their managers about what the customer wants, what the customer is saying, what the customer is requiring, what the customer experiences. Those managers should be talking less than those frontline people. Those managers should be talking to the executives about what they saw, whatever that is, so that Ed Stack can do one thing and one thing really well. He says, I should be doing the least amount of talking in my organization and the most amount of listening, so he can discern and decipher and take apart the information he heard so that he can formulate a strategy around the customer. Okay, that's why structure is important as entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship, human resource management. This is the most creative and the most fun I had as an operator and the president of a family business. How are we setting goals in our organization, ladies and gentlemen? How are we designing our jobs? We have the free autonomy to do this. How do we hire people? If I asked you to submit as a consulting, plan, I just, hey, can you send me some of your job descriptions that you've written for yourself or that you've written for employees that you've hired? I hope that those job descriptions are exciting. I hope that they get me interested in whatever it is I'm doing, even if it's driving a truck to Texas by myself, even if it's cutting somebody's hair, even if it's doing another writing assignment online, whatever it is, I hope that you write it as if it's the coolest job on earth, because we can do that and we can be entrepreneurial in the way in which we do that. So these are just some other ideas that we have to run our company in an entrepreneurial kind of way. So when we talk about growth, I'll be about 7 more minutes here. When we talk about growth, we're talking about organization performance. When we talk about performance, we're talking about effectiveness and efficiency. So let me back up for a second. Do we want to grow? What is growth? And I believe in our organization, we wanted to get better, not bigger. So everybody has a different definition of growth, but we all have come to this webinar knowing that we're not happy where we are and we want to get better or we want to grow. So what does that mean? Effectiveness is the organization's ability to accomplish its goals. Efficiency is the organization's ability to utilize our resources, if you remember what our resources are, in a cost-effective manner. How well are we accomplishing goals, effectiveness, and how well are we utilizing our resources to accomplish those goals? And how happy are our stakeholders? How happy are you, the entrepreneur? If you're not happy, that's a litmus test that something needs to change. How happy is your wife or your husband or your children? How happy are your customers? How happy are your employees? These are great questions to ask when we talk about growth. And then look at revenue. How can we grow our revenue? We can add new revenue drivers. How can we grow our market share? What is our market share? How can we create new markets within our business? There's a great book called Blue Ocean Strategy that I hope that you can listen to. But if you think, okay, so I'm a pet company. I watch dogs, not a pet company, but I'm a dog sitter. And I'm making my living as a dog sitter and I utilize my house. If I'm if I'm watching dogs, and this is great, I really want to watch, and I see their mannerisms and I see how they interact, I see what they like. And I'm also a foodaholic. I love food and I love, nutrients and figuring out, physical fitness in humans. And I transition that to my dogs, and I design, or I somehow patent the dog food brand that's going to make dogs happier. I have the ability to start working in a new market. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about new markets. There's a slew of ways we can talk about that. It's a growth strategy. Customer growth, churn, retention, lifetime value. I talked a lot about our strategy of ensuring that we want to retain our customers. We want less churn and we want 100% retainage. And then of course the lifetime value, I think I talked a little bit about that as well, of, what are our customers worth? We were in the pool maintenance, pool renovations, and repair business. And a lot of times we would look at a pool maintenance customer and we'd say, okay, this is $180 a month customer. And then we'd look at another customer and it'd be a $90 a month pool maintenance customer. But if we were to evaluate them as to whether or not they're good customers based on just that one figure, we would be doing ourselves a disservice, because the $90 customer just did a pool renovation for us, 6 months ago. And also that $90 customer is on a continual maintenance plan or a preventative maintenance plan. So the best way to look at that lifetime value is to look at that customer over a 3-year period and to see how much revenue have we captured from this customer in that period compared to other customers. So that was a revolutionary thing in our business that we were capable of analyzing, so we can figure out, how important is this customer? Am I going to allow this customer to talk to me like that? Well, heck yeah, you better believe it, because they've spent, $50,000 with me in the last 2 years, versus this customer over here, all he ever does is pool maintenance service. So that's the power of having a lifetime value analysis. And then profit. So profit is, best way to describe profit is, it is an indicator of how we're doing. And that's it. So a lot of companies, sometimes nonprofits, they obviously don't have the indicator of profit being an indicator of performance, because they're looking for exposure, awareness, societal improvement. But if I have a for-profit venture and if I'm making money, it means I'm doing something right and I shouldn't change. If I'm making good money and good margin. If I'm break even, it means I need to change something for sure. I can't just sit here. But if I'm losing money, it means I need to change a lot. So it's an indicator as to how much change and how our strategy is working out for us. That's sort of how I talk about profit. So I'm going to skip over this in essence of time. You guys can see the graph, but this quote is awesome. Peter Drucker says, "The ability to adapt is important. When a new venture does succeed, more often than not, it's in a market other than the one it was intended to serve, with products and services not quite those with which it was set out, bought in large part by customers it did not even think about when it got started, and used for a host of purposes besides the ones for which the products were designed." So what this really says to me is, an entrepreneur may create the venture and they may shape the venture, but inevitably the venture shapes and creates the entrepreneur, that the journey is most important. So the strategy is pliable, and it's about the journey. So revenue growth, here are some examples. An HVAC company. An HVAC company comes in and they take my air conditioning and they put in a new air conditioning system, and I pay him $4,000. And after I pay him $4,000, he says to me, "Okay, well, see you later." No. He doesn't say see you later. He cares about additional revenue coming into his business. So he says to me, "I have a quarterly maintenance plan I'd like you to sign up for. We're going to come here. If you just put your signature here on this page before, this transaction is complete, we're going to come here and we're going to charge you $150 a quarter, and we're going to check your AC system and see if we can, find any flaws in it before it breaks." That is building additional revenue within my business. Duolingo. I have never, not once, paid Duolingo $1, not a single dollar, for all the services I've been using for 6 years. But you better believe they want me to, because they offer a freemium model. They're giving me free Spanish lessons, and they want me to sign up for a perpetual customer. It's a creative way to potentially get more revenue by signing people up for a subscription by offering free services. Duolingo makes the majority of their revenue from advertising. I'm sure some of you who understand do that. GoDaddy. Everybody knows GoDaddy as a company that sells domains. But what GoDaddy also does, once a person has a domain, what else do they need? They need website design services. So GoDaddy offers those services. These are strategies to grow your revenue within your company. And it all goes back to the business model. If you get creative with the business model, there's a slew of different ways you can find strategy opportunities within your company. Customer growth. Get, keep, and grow your customers. I'm hoping that you guys take this slide and this depiction and you print it out and you frame it somehow, because it has helped me a ton. Acquiring new customers. What are we doing to acquire new customers? Are we in the acquisition phase of our business? Is that a part of our strategy? If so, what are we doing? What kind of strategy are we adopting? Some ideas, obviously paid, earned media. And then there's a difference between acquiring a customer, which means they come into your store. Hey, thanks for coming into my pinch a penny shop, and thanks for coming into Home Depot or whatever store I own. It'd be great to own Home Depot. But once they come into my store, I've acquired them, right? My marketing has worked. But the question is, did they make a purchase? Once they purchase, that's activating them. How are we keeping our customers? How are we retaining them? Are they pleased and delighted with their service? Are we offering loyalty programs? And then we go to upsell, next sell, cross sell, and referrals. If I had more time, I'd probably talk about that. So moving on, next slide. Profit growth. There are creative ways as an entrepreneur, and I'll just focus on this one example, that we can, let's say, negotiate with our suppliers. And we can look at our costs within our organization, and we could figure out how to mitigate those costs. We can leverage our resources differently. We can use somebody else's van while it's parked, for the summertime because they live in Boston for 3 months, and pay them a fee. We can, instead of buying a building, we can lease it. And if we lease it, we can do it month to month, and we can negotiate that lease each month. So figuring out ways to reduce your cost is a strategy. It's a cost conscious strategy. And Banana Republic did that really well when they first started with shopping their suppliers and some of the terms that they were offered with their suppliers. So feel free to look at this. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, but are we offering new products to the world, new services to the world? Are we offering new to the market, the existing market? Something new. I talked about a bunch of examples there. A new product or service line within a company, additions to a product or service line, product improvements, like incremental improvements to make the toothpaste a little bit better for the cavities, new applications of existing products. Are we utilizing our podcast into different platforms? Are we putting it onto other people's websites? Whatever that looks like, the same application, but in different areas. Repositioning an existing product, cost reductions for existing products. So this is one I'm almost done. And then we'll open it up for questions. If you think about innovation, one of the biggest, most critical things in entrepreneurship is innovation. And I talked to you about the unique competitive advantage or sustainable competitive advantage you have as an entrepreneur is to think and act entrepreneurially. Innovation is one of them. Innovate. There's one example where it's a famous story about how when a batter in the MLB comes up to the plate and they go to do well with hitting this ball in the profession that they're getting paid a lot of money to do. What are they thinking about? And why are they thinking about? They're thinking about their mechanics. They're thinking about, where's my foot? Where do I place my hands? Is my weight evenly distributed? Whatever that looks like. And they're also thinking about their batting average. They want to get a good hit because they want their batting average to go up. When is the batting average the best throughout the season? And the answer to the question is in the beginning of the season. Why? Because they have less swings at the plate. They have less opportunities to strike out. This thinking is the opposite of what innovation and what certain people encourage people to do with innovation. They don't say come to the plate a few times, do some successful innovation, and then never come to the plate again. They say take as many swings as you possibly can. Innovate as often as possible in slow incremental ways. And then over time, practice begets practice or progress begets progress. Innovation is key, and we must practice innovation. I wouldn't be a college professor unless I put a 2x2 matrix on there. You can take a look at this in your free time. Growth strategy matrix talks about new markets, current products, new products. It's just to create, again, I'd rather this be practical because these words are really, MBA speak, market penetration, market development, good words. But what's more important is that we understand the relevancy of these words, which we'll talk about more. Last example of channels. This is a big one, especially with the delivery of internet, web, and mobile channels. And back in the day, it was all about these bricks and mortar stores. The only way I can buy a product is if I went to the store and physically bought it. With the way our economy is now and with how technology is now, it's completely transitioned that. Look at the way in which we order food. Look at the way in which we even have our houses cleaned. And I ordered something on Amazon and it showed up the same day. You look at the robots on the street that are delivering food. A great example is fresh cut flowers. If you think about the successful customer experience with a person who buys flowers, when there's a retail store as an intermediary, meaning if the flowers are cut from the people who grow them, they sit at the retail store, and then I go to the retail store and purchase them. I bring them home. My wife is happy for 2 or 3 days, and then she's looking at me and mad at me again because the flowers are dying. But if I create a system or a channel where I can capture the customers and I could cut out the retail store and I could buy them directly from the distributors, the flowers are cut at the growth place, sent straight to the customer. What does that do? It increases the shelf life of the flowers tremendously. It delights and amazes the customers. All right, so I'll stop there so that we can have some questions. This is just so I can explain this. The entrepreneurial intensity is the frequency of entrepreneurship, which is the amount. I talked about the baseball example, and the degree of entrepreneurship. If you look at this progression, it gives you some examples of companies that are doing a lot of entrepreneurship, but really the entrepreneurship is incremental. It's not groundbreaking or changing too much. And then you have some companies that are doing not as much entrepreneurship, but when they do it, it makes a huge impact. So what's your strategy? Are you going to do it every now and again and do it really, really, really well? Or are you going to do it often, like I said with that baseball example? Here's a summation of everything I said. You can look at that in your free time. And lastly, when you set goals for corporate strategy and growth, what I ask you to do is have milestones of understanding what your strategy is, understanding how you're going to grow your company, laying out some examples, your core competencies. And remember, what we're talking about when we talk about strategy is how are our resources and how are our core competencies being utilized towards our mission and vision and being focused towards our strategy so that we can crush our competition. I know that competition is sometimes a confidential road, but we want to beat them consistently, which would be a sustained competitive advantage. All right, God bless you all. Hopefully you enjoyed that somehow. Here's a nice quote for you all to end, and I'm looking forward to some questions.
Okay, I don't see any questions yet, but strongly encourage you to type your questions in the Q&A, so like that I'll be able to moderate them for you. Also, next week, the 18th of January, strongly encourage you to register and participate because it's going to go more in depth from what Claude was talking about in regards of the growth strategy and now finding the analysis of what works and what doesn't work, along with how to track and measure that business growth as well. So by all means, I strongly encourage you to register, participate, because definitely, we're here to assist you. So anything that we could do to help you out, just let us know. Okay, Claude, I have a question for you. What's the difference between awards and rewards?
I love it. It was in my presentation. So I use examples. A reward is, Jesus, you did a great job with this seminar tonight. The more successful seminars you have and the more people are in attendance, I'm going to give you as a compensation 20% more each time you have it's a performance-based reward based on work. An award is recognizing somebody who has tried the hardest they could possibly try but failed. An award is recognizing somebody who has been consistently showing up to work on a regular basis. An award is when somebody just goes above and beyond for a customer, and obviously you're not going to pay it. You might not be able to pay them more, but you give them a trophy or you take them out to dinner and just say thank you. That's awarding somebody for just being entrepreneurial.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
All right, let's see. Okay, yeah, so the slides will be provided. I'll be able to email you the slides along with the YouTube link as well, so definitely like and subscribe. Now I have a question for you. Is it better to try to run 3 online businesses at once or focus on one business at a time?
Well, if you're asking me, I would say focus on one business at a time, because that's based on my inherent skill set, and that's just what I would enjoy more. But it depends on your business model. You know, it's if so, let's run that through. If you had, if you're looking at volume as opposed to margin, and you're trying to offer more people a particular service so that you're competing on price, that's sort of your strategy, and you need more exposure in order to get that volume, then I would say three. But if you're trying to deliver a diversified strategy, if you're focusing on just strict quality and you're going to be the best shoe polisher in the world, and everybody is going to come to your location, so have one location and buy the best products. So I mean, hopefully that gives you an example of, you know, how I would answer that question depending on your strategy and the unique needs and resources of your business.
Oh, we talked about profit, but what happened with cash flow and maybe additional capital needed?
Well, that's where you come in, Jesus.
Yeah, so
uh,
in piggybacking, you know, like pretty much I'll chime in. Having a conversation with a marketing consultant and access to capital consultant, that's how you're able to play around with the projections. And is this marketing strategy that you're envisioning $1 million, but based on the projections, the analysis is actually 1.5. So, and how much of that will be the breakdown for marketing? Is it more for hiring people, buying additional products? So it all determines, every business is different based on your capacity, your character, what's your credit score is like. Um, you know, and we'll be able to go more in depth of your business because no two businesses are the same. So definitely I encourage you to register at the link that I provided to meet with Luby, with Steve, and also with our other business navigator folks to we'll be able to dive in and do the full forensic analysis of your business.
do you mind if I add to that,
Go for it. Go
Jesus?
for it.
So when you talk about capital, we have to talk about it as a resource. Is what is the capital for? And if I'm a banker or I'm an institutional investor, I want to know my investment, what's it going towards? So if you have a working operating business model with cash flow, let me tell you something, you're eons better than most entrepreneurs out there, that you have something and people want to be a part of it. So if you can take that and really articulate that and maybe define some of the processes I told you about and maybe have a strategy for growth and differentiation, you could present that to a banker and you can say, hey, if I hire 3 or 4 more people, if I buy 2 more vehicles based on my existing cash flow, here's what that looks like in the future, meaning you're capable of analyzing those numbers and breaking those unit costs down and looking at the profitability per crew or profitability per product and showing a banker that you know what you're talking about. And then when they give you this money, not only will you be able to repay the loan, but you'll also likely be coming back for a line of credit, you know, a year from now or 2 years from now, because your business is growing.
Let's see. Okay, perfect. Okay, they like your response, Cloud. So good job. Okay, is there any additional questions? Okay, so definitely, you know, I want to thank Claude and Steve for today's webinar, but at the same time, just don't hesitate, shoot me an email. I'll be able to connect you with the appropriate channels and how I can assist you, and also with our resource partners as well. So definitely I'll be looking forward to seeing you all next week, same time, same place. And like I said, we're always a phone call away to help and create those strategies to become effective and efficiently. Steve, Claudia, you want to say something?
Yeah, Jesus, I just wanted to add my thanks to Claude as well for such an excellent presentation, Claude. We really appreciate you. You've been there for branches, and I know you've expressed that you are going to continue being here for us. So I want to express thanks for the future as well. I do want to just remind everyone that, and this is particularly for the businesses that are part of the branches incubator, on Monday, we'll be unveiling in our virtual meeting, which is at 6 to 6:30, the calendar of training for 2023. So all of the events, all of the training, we'll be giving you guys a picture of that calendar if you remember to join into that meeting. Remember also that today's session is the basis of 2 other sessions this month, right? It's the growth strategy metrics that we'll be teaching you guys next week. And of course, this is all going to be tied up into an in-person workshop. And this is going to be held at the Idea Center at Miami-Dade College. You guys will be getting more information about that from Jesus as well. So on behalf of Luby and I just wanted to say thanks to everybody for coming and joining with Branches and Claude and Jesus and everybody that's on tonight in this training. So again, everyone, thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.